Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar brought to you by Chartwell. My name is Scott Johnson. I'll be your moderator today. For more than 20 years, Chartwell's EMACS conference has brought you the latest industry trends and information on new technologies to improve customer experience and operational efficiencies. We're excited to build on that legacy with our new EMACS webinar series aimed to prepare you for the conference and bring you even more insights into the industry and what's going on and how to leverage that information to better serve your customers. Our topic today is building engaging digital experiences, flexible mobile app solutions. The teams from Entergy, Mindgrub Technologies, and DataCapable are here to talk about a modern approach to implementing flexible technology solutions that meet the needs of utility organizations and customers. Using the award-winning Entergy customer mobile application as a case study, we're going to provide an overview of the benefits of combining custom software solutions with flexible off-the-shelf products, enabling utilities to build solutions that are tailored to the needs of their customers. Before I introduce our presenters, we've got a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the webinar, we encourage you to submit them using the Q&A tool as we go along. We'll try to answer these at the end of the webinar, but if we run out of time, we'll answer you via email afterwards. A copy of today's slide deck is available in the resources list. And finally, today's webinar is being recorded. A link to the on-demand version of the webinar will be sent to you tomorrow when the recording is available for viewing. So once again, my name is Scott Johnson. I'm Vice President here at Chartwell. I'll be your moderator for this session. Behind the scenes, joining me is Jennifer Chalk, our Manager of Events, who will be producing the event from a separate location. Let me go ahead and welcome our presenters today. First up, we have Kevin Peterson, who's COO at DataCapable. Kevin has previously held managerial roles across multiple industries, including professional services, governmental agencies, and leading institutions of higher education. He has seasoned experience in the utility industry, especially in the areas of business development, strategic planning, operations management, project management, and customer operations. And we'll hear from Kevin in just a minute. Also joining us is Laura Gousha, VP of Engagement with Mindgrub. With more than 5 years of experience in custom software development and sales, Laura excels at the requirements definition, project estimation, Agile process implementation, and overall strategic planning for clients that range from startups to Fortune 100 organizations. She specializes in hands-on strategic and technical consultation. As Vice President of Engagement at Mindgrub, she provides the strategic direction for key accounts including Entergy, Exelon, the University of Maryland, and Yamaha. We'll hear from Laura in just a few minutes as well. And last but certainly not least, in leading us off today, is a good dear friend of Chartwell, one of my personal favorite people, so glad to have her with us, Susan Adam, who's Manager of Customer Solutions at Entergy. She has more than 21 years of experience with Entergy in customer experience as well as IT. In her current role, her focus is on outage and technical service customer journeys. She's a certified Agile Scrum product owner and technical services and product owner of several products at Entergy. And one of those products is the native mobile app, which includes a native outage map with several additional map features in the product backlog in the next quarter. Welcome, Susan, Laura, and Kevin. Susan, I think you're going to get us started with just a quick overview of Entergy and some of the things that you've been working on. So, Susan, if you're ready, go right ahead.
Entergy has 5 operating companies in 4 states, and we produce, transmit, and distribute electricity to 3 million customers. We're one of the cleanest U.S. power generating fleets with approximately 30,000 megawatts capacity, 8,000 of which are nuclear power.
All right, very good. Thank you, Susan. And next we're going to hear a little bit about Mindgrub. Laura, if you're ready, would you tell us a little about Mindgrub?
Thanks, Scott. It's a pleasure being here today. Mindgrub is a custom software development agency specializing in the design and implementation of websites, mobile apps, portals, and much, much more. Our focus is on designing technology for real people, utilizing an agile software development approach. We work with a number of utility companies, including Entergy, Exelon, LG&E, KU, as well as organizations such as NASA, Crayola, and Royal Farms to build engaging digital solutions. Specifically, we collaborated with Entergy to build their new mobile app, which of course we'll be talking about today. Turn it over to Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura, and thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today and hear about this journey we've been through and a new way to think about problems and solutions. So DataCapable as a company is deeply rooted in both utilities and software experience. So our team is made up of folks who have spent time in the utility seats working utility roles and utility jobs. So we really feel like we understand the utility from the inside. And then we complement that with a core of seasoned software engineers with experience at companies like IBM and Intuit. And our focus as a company is really about facilitating the capture and communication of critical information and closing the communication gap between employees, business units, and the communities that they serve, ultimately resulting in a safer environment for our customers to live and operate in, and higher customer satisfaction across the company.
All right, very good. Thank you, Kevin. So we're going to, as you can tell from the format, we're going to be going back and forth a lot and inviting everybody. This is really a collaborative presentation webinar. So we're looking forward to not only hearing from each of our speakers, but then also some roundtable discussion toward the end. And of course, there's going to be time for your questions. But I want to go ahead and give it back to Susan for a second, because part of the focus today is really emphasizing this importance of collaboration. And Susan, I know you wanted to talk for a little bit about the importance of selecting the right software partners. So could you speak to that for us for just a little bit?
Yes. So in 2018, we were looking for vendors for both a new view outage map as well as a native mobile app. And our vendor selection requirements included having experience with Agile Scrum and delivering via 2-week sprints with timely releases for similar products to other utilities. DataCapable and Mindgrub have worked with Entergy for our excellent customer journey experiences across both the web and mobile channels. Our in-person collaboration in Baltimore was just what we needed to quickly design our omni-channel outage map solution. And now our streetlight map is our latest example. It provides more accurate streetlight location information from our Esri GIS and a quick and easy customer interface to report the light out. This is our first feature from our team that is actually expected to save time and money for Entergy while still improving the customer experience. Back to you, Scott.
All right, thank you. Very good. So Kevin, I want to go to you on this, and then Laura on this same question. I know you've prepared some information for us, but one of the big discussion points I know in the industry is the decision that you have to go back and forth on customized versus off-the-shelf software development. So if you won't mind, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And then Laura, I want to ask the same question. I know you each brought some material for us. So if we can go to that next slide and see what we've got on that one. There we go. So Kevin, why don't you speak to this one for me?
Fantastic, Scott. Thanks for the question. And just to build off what Susan was saying, this software problem at its core, this is about finding the right partners that can help you deliver on your vision, on your needs, and on your customers. So traditionally, we've all looked at these problems. We've all evaluated these problems. Do I build it in-house? Do I bring in somebody who can build custom software for me? Do I bring in a vendor that offers an out-of-the-box solution? All of these items have significant trade-offs. We've heard, a traditional SaaS model is a quick integration, quick to get it up on its feet. I think we've all lived the experiences where that's not always true as well. And then we've all heard about, well, if we build a custom software, are we going to be able to support it over time? Are we going to be held hostage by the vendor that's providing it? Are there hidden costs? Is it going to be more expensive than we estimated the project to be to begin with? These are all valid points. These are all valid considerations. These are all challenges we've faced. But I think the exciting thing about this project and what we're excited about sharing with you here today is there is an option that mitigates the risk of both of these while also capturing a lot of the upside value. And that is about selecting flexible software products, selecting the right partners that are there in the journey with you, are in a place where that they can help you adjust to the changing environments we're working in, and then mitigate the downside risk. So there isn't a short development cycle that is going to deliver all your needs, but there is a just right solution that will deliver on the needs of your customers, deliver on the needs of your business. There are software solutions out there that provide flexibility. And when I talk about flexibility, I'm saying solutions that have the ability to tailor to the needs of your specific business and your specific customers. While we all face a lot of the same challenges, we also know there's a lot of nuances and intricacies of operating in the different operating environments that we have to operate in. And then selecting out of the box always presents the challenge, well, now do I have to rework all of my internal workflows? That's often discounted in this question around taking an out-of-box software. We believe that there's a model where you can fit out-of-the-box software and custom software to meet your needs and apply the right amount of change in both the business and the software. And then obviously balancing risk and reward. As utilities, that is a challenge we all have. We all have to present those risk and rewards to our regulators. We all have to make decisions in the best interest of our customers. So my challenge to all of you is to think about these concepts and these notions that you come into these projects or these evaluations with and spin it on its head and be open to looking at new solutions that thread the needle and find the best of both worlds.
All right, very good. And Laura, I want to get your take on this same question, but just let me briefly pause. I want to make sure I remind everybody that you can chat your questions in at any time as we go along. I forgot to mention that when we got started. You can use the Q&A widget at any point during the presentations to send a question to any of our panelists. And as I said, we'll go ahead once we're through with our roundtable discussion, take our audience questions. But Laura, go ahead on this question of custom versus custom and off-the-shelf software development. I'm interested in your perspective from Mindgrub, how you see this issue.
Of course. Thanks, Scott. It's our strong belief that custom software development and strategic SaaS systems integrations are fundamental to creating engaging digital experiences. Through this conversation, we want to break the myth that it has to be all or nothing, that you have to go with a fully custom solution or with a fully off-the-shelf solution. Instead, we are promoting the idea that you can get the best of all worlds with this hybrid model. What we found is a lot of the utility companies that we've worked with, though not all of them, had a pre-existing mobile app before we started to engage with them. And most of the time it was an off-the-shelf utility mobile app. And it may have met some needs, but it certainly didn't meet the scalability needs and flexibility and customization that those clients would require. And so by utilizing this approach of the blended model, you're able to start at the true basis of any successful software development project, which is with the customer. In the case of Entergy, their market research team conducted 150 ethnographic interviews to fully understand their customer base and inform the requirements for the mobile app. Requirements that are driven by customer business needs rather than what an off-the-shelf product offers are naturally going to be best tailored for your organization. Off-the-shelf software is designed for a large variety of users and use cases, as that makes the most business sense for that platform. As a result, generally off-the-shelf or SaaS offerings may only meet about 70 to 80% of your targeted requirement needs. And that was certainly something we've seen with a lot of our client partners when they're evaluating different options in the market. And oftentimes these solutions will include a lot of bloat, that is unnecessary features. The features that your customers or the business doesn't really need, but you're still paying for as part of the licensing fees associated with those platforms. I always like to tell a little fun fact that's associated with this concept. So for example, the average Microsoft Office user utilizes about 20 to 30% of its features, and the remaining 70% is a great source of confusion with many buttons and functions, and sometimes it's just overly complex for what you actually need to do. Unfortunately, as I said, this happens a lot of times in software offered by utility and other organizations. It can be confusing or overwhelming for the customer, really just not make that much sense. And what custom software development allows you to do is narrow down your functionality and streamline your end user experience while still integrating with a lot of complex systems to power all of your desired functionality. This diagram here on the slide illustrates the complexity of the Entergy application behind the scenes. We developed a custom API layer utilizing Amazon Web Services between Entergy's existing backend architecture and systems and the new mobile application. This allows us to collect the data provided by Entergy's various systems and format it into a structure that can be easily consumed by those applications. This connects with multiple systems, including TIBCO, Salesforce, and of course, as we're talking about today, DataCapable. This allows Entergy to continue utilizing their multiple systems that are optimized to best provide the functionality needed, be it storm information or data from AMI. I'd like to highlight that these custom solutions also allow you the flexibility to build upon your application as business and customer needs evolve, as well as add additional integrations with new platforms with a plug-and-play approach. You always want to have the best software to do whatever functionality that is important to that end user. And this allows you to add new software providers as new functionality becomes available. So if a utility, for example, is considering whether or not to add, for example, features around EV infrastructure, but say the current software provider doesn't have it, they're able to add another without fundamentally changing the whole architecture of their mobile app. If you're relying on one vendor for this platform, that becomes incredibly difficult to do. And so we've worked with a number of utilities utilizing this approach to add a wealth of innovative functionality to their mobile applications and subsequent releases, such as things like appointment tracking, gamification, enhanced accessibility features, and more. With the traditional model, this continued level of personalization is only possible if the software provider offers such customizations, oftentimes at a high cost, or it intends to offer it as part of their standard platform. The tailored model we're speaking about today takes the full control out of the software provider and instead puts it in hands of the utility where it belongs.
Very good. That last part I know is going to resonate with a lot of our audience today, so that's very good. Let me go to the next topic, and I think, Susan, you wanted to speak to this one. This is related to the common misconceptions of custom software. Susan, you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So it's very common to sell an off-the-shelf product to executives only to find that at best it meets 80% of the needs. Rather than changing the processes to match those solutions, more often time and money is spent during the implementation customizing for the other 20%. Cost and time to deliver are often underestimated for off-the-shelf because of this. Our experience with DataCapable and Mindgrub working in Agile biweekly sprints is that we can deliver more frequently to meet our customers' ever-increasing expectations. These are released in less cost and time than waiting on COTS vendors to possibly include our requested enhancements in a future release of their products. Examples include our pre-storm layer with integration to our Storm Geo weather data, which updates every 30 minutes. DataCapable was able to deliver this in 3 sprints shortly after deploying our new outage map, and then they were easily able to share this for inclusion in our mobile app. This agility has been successfully repeated for our reliability map, our planned outage map, and recently our streetlight map. All of these come from customer needs and are usually like, how many sprints do you need? Can you have it next month? It's so nice to be able to say, yes, I can. The successful delivery of these features has very little support cost. And we're also able to include minor bug fixes in our sprints while delivering new features. Thank you, Scott.
Very good. And boy, the Agile now, as we talk about being in this COVID pandemic, still in the middle of all of this stuff, it's really encouraging to see how so many organizations have moved to this kind of a methodology. So that's fantastic, and this fits right in with that. Kevin, let me go next to you. I think you had brought some information to share related to the key to ensuring, there it is, to ensuring an off-the-shelf product, is flexible. If you go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott. So to me, again, bringing it back to the fundamentals, this is about selecting the right solutions for you, your business, and your customers. The reality is utilities are in an unenviable spot of having a lot of old legacy systems, having a lot of large investments, while also being in the position that the customer expectations are changing faster than they ever have. The regulatory expectations are changing faster than they ever have. And they're straddled with this challenge with how do I keep up with legacy systems, with evolving customer expectations, and with an organization that isn't positioned to move quickly. So when you make these types of investments with vendors and their solutions, you really have to look at and understand that this isn't a transactional relationship that you're investing in, but this is a long-term relationship. And finding the right partners with the right architecture out of the gate will support you in the out years indefinitely. And really that, from our perspective, is the key to having flexible off-the-shelf software, something that you know will perform, you know will meet the needs of your business, but also with a software partner that understands that one size doesn't fit all for every utility, and understands that you have those unique system challenges associated with legacy data and accuracy of data, and is in a position to work with you to make sure that you're able to present the data in the ways that you want to present the data and in the ways that your customers are expecting you to present the data. And then another key point is making sure that that vendor and that solution aligns with existing investments. So as you all know, many utility investments are very lumpy investments, and you are saddled with those investments for 5, 10, 15, 25. I know there's a lot of utilities out there that still have CIS systems that are 30 or 40-year-old mainframe systems. So you need flexibility on the people who are with your vendors who are building on top of these systems to ensure that they can ingest the data in the ways that you're able to present it, and then take that data and make sense of it and provide it to your customers so it's providing value and keeping up with the changes in their expectations. And Laura and Susan have both already hit on Agile design and development. That's a key because, like I said, and like you all know, expectations are changing extremely rapidly, and customers are expecting a tailored experience. They see that experience in many other facets of their life. So now the challenge is, how do we incorporate that into the utility experience? And then finally, a key piece is having a vendor that's there to support you. It listens to your feedback, it incorporates your feedback, and doesn't put you in a position where you're a year out, you're 2 years out, and you're a major software upgrade out from having those features. This rapidly evolving environment we're living in does not fit with that old model of software and software development. And then having a vendor that understands the seats that you're sitting in, understands the challenges that you have, and understands what it's like to have a bad day in the utility seat, and is there working side by side with you if and when challenges do come up.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. And of course, this is all fantastic information, but I always look forward to the next slide, and that's where we talk about the outcomes and the successes that we've had. So Susan, I'm going to go back to you for this one. If you'd share a little bit more of the detail of what the gains you've been able to realize through implementing this solution.
Sure. Thank you, Scott. Our results have been awesome since deploying our new outage map in late 2018 and our native mobile app last November. In our first 2 weeks, we had 1 million downloads, which was 4 times our expected audience in that short time frame. The majority of our in-app ratings continue to be 4 or 5 stars. Our Net Promoter Score increase was a great boost as we ended last year, and our App Store scores nearly doubled. We've won several awards for Best User Experience and Features, Best User Interface, as well as our campaigns and products. We'd like to share a short video with you for an overview of our mobile app.
Welcome to the all-new Entergy app. Use your My Entergy web username and password to log in for the first time. You may then set up fingerprint or Face ID if available on your device. On the welcome screen, you'll find your current balance, due date, and the option for a one-time payment. Navigate to the bill screen to set up Quick Pay or make a one-time payment. You can also view a detailed breakdown of your current bill, bill comparison, a PDF version of the bill, or your history of billing and payments. Paying your bill is as simple as entering your bank account and payment amount. You can also make payments using your debit or credit card via Bill Matrix. Navigate to the outage screen to view your power status, report an outage, and view the outage map. Navigate to the usage screen to view your daily usage and cost, or see your monthly trend. You can locate your account number by viewing account details or viewing your bill. The Entergy app also offers energy efficiency tips, Storm Center, and current news and updates. As a valued customer, your feedback on ways to improve your mobile Entergy experience is always welcome.
All right, Susan, thank you for sharing that video, and thanks also to our other two presenters. Again, I want to encourage and invite the audience to send in some questions. We're happy to take those, particularly, I think, related to the successes that you just saw there and how those were achieved. I think it's a great opportunity to learn from one of the leading utilities. And Susan, congrats again. I know we talked about the success you'd had back when we did Chartwell's outage conference, our Power Up conference at mid-year, but I don't think a lot of people realize the other things you had going on at the time you were rolling this out, like, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 major hurricanes breathing down your neck during this. So again, congratulations for all the success on that. While we wait for some audience questions, we did want to do a little roundtable discussion and invite all three of our panelists to join in on this one. So this first question I've got for Kevin, and then I'd like to ask Laura if you'd answer it as well. What's the adoption rate like for businesses that are using custom software versus those who are using off the shelf? Do you think the flexible approach that we're talking about today has the potential to reach an even higher adoption rate than what we've seen so far? So Kevin, if you'd speak to that first, and then Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That's a fantastic question, and I think there's always the challenge of how you measure adoption rates and what those numbers are actually telling you. So I would pose the question or flip the question a little bit in that it's about customers continuing to use the software once they engage with it. So it's not about did the customer download the app one time, but is the customer using the app regularly, and is it a source of information and a source for them to transact? I can say during the recent Ida storm, we had over 3 million views on the outage map over the course of that storm. I think we peaked out at close to 75,000 concurrent users on the map on that storm. And it really speaks to, A, the power of the technology to support it, but more importantly, B, Entergy's approach to putting the customer first when they're thinking about these challenges and how they design it. And I would applaud Entergy for the process that they're going through now in understanding those challenges and understanding that they can continue to improve and get better. And they're now looking at what is the journey from end to end for those customers. So aligning not only what the visualization is, what the information is, but also aligning it with what the business processes are, what the information that's available, and providing clear transparency to their customers. And I fundamentally believe that taking that approach, understanding your customers at the core, and building solutions that are built around that understanding, it absolutely drives adoption, and not just adoption, but continued use of the software and the products and the engagement of the customer with them.
Excellent, thank you. And Laura, same question, your take on the flexible approach and the potential there to drive an even higher adoption rate than what we've seen historically up to this point.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's certainly difficult to provide exact figures on adoption rates. The percentage of companies utilizing this flexible custom solution approach is certainly increasing year to year, and I think there's two primary drivers for that. First, there's a growing need for flexibility as organizations continue to expand their front-facing customer options and channels. The utility of the future is giving a lot more control and information to the end users than ever before. And as a result, that data is coming from a multitude of different places. And so I think, the recognition is that, okay, well, we need to give something that's a one-stop shop for those customers, not multiple platforms where they can engage with data. We've certainly seen scenarios where other organizations, and this is not a utility exclusive issue, this is across many different industries, is that they'll give their customers the ability to sign into multiple platforms. I'm sure we've experienced this working with our healthcare providers or our banks, where you have to log into multiple places to get information. And this is incredibly frustrating. And so I think there's definitely a recognition that in order to streamline that experience, to offer one platform optimized to the use case, you need to consider this hybrid approach. And I think one of the big other reasons that there's this movement to more custom solutions is, again, this question of ownership. Being able to own a product has a lot of value in that you're able to control your destiny, basically. You can make sure that that application is meeting your guidelines for security, for user accessibility, as well as features. And a lot of utilities are wanting to have that control by building out, for example, in-house support teams, design teams, engineering teams that can build and support these products rather than relying exclusively on a third party to do that. And so what we have found with a lot of our partners is that we're working as part of an Agile team with both other vendors, but also the in-house teams of those organizations, with great product owners like Susan leading the charge. So I think those are kind of the two reasons why we're seeing this, and just kind of sharing a recent anecdote about this conundrum that companies face. I'm working with a client right now to vet whether or not they should use an off-the-shelf product or if they should move to a custom solution. And of course, the idea of a custom solution is a bit overwhelming and scary. There's a lot of work that goes into building out the requirements, the design and the development of one of these platforms. But when we had the conversation with some different vendors, what we found is that their current off-the-shelf, and I put quotes around that, off-the-shelf solution, had been over 70% customized to fit their specific needs over the 15 years that they had been using that particular software. And as a result, essentially going with that vendor meant essentially building a fully custom solution. And I think that was a bit of an eye-opening surprise for that client. So what we said is there's a lot of value in that off-the-shelf platform to perform some functionality, but what about offering this custom solution on top of it? So again, you have this level of control that you need to scale your business.
Very good. Excellent. I'm going to bring Susan in the conversation now. And Susan, I've got a question for you. And then Laura, I think I want to have you answer this one as well. So Susan, how often do you work to update Entergy's app to better fit customer needs and to address any kind of bugs or other issues that have come up? Because it always happens, you launch it and then you've got to maybe tweak it, just a few things. Do you find it challenging to push changes through when you're with multiple vendors to work with? Can you speak to that one for me?
Yes. So we're continuing with our Agile DevOps 2-week sprints, and we usually deploy after 2 sprints. Usually it's mostly new features, but if we do have bug fixes, they're included in that as well. And at the end of this month, we'll be deploying release 15, and that's since last November. We also make sure that both channels and DataCapable and Mindgrub teams are aligned together, especially when we're doing new map solutions. We have Scrum of Scrum meetings to make sure up front we know what direction we're going in and who's developing what and how we're going to make those work together. And that makes sure we're aligned on what the sprint plan is, what we're committing to in a sprint, and what release these new map features will be in.
Very good. And Laura, same question from your side of the house and working with Entergy to make sure that the app's being updated and that you're responding to any kind of issues that come up. Can you speak to that question?
There's always a standard level of maintenance and support you have to do with your mobile application. For example, making sure that the operating systems are up to date and all that good stuff. But what I find really great about this model is that you're able to add constant innovation, as Susan said. And that's critical for ongoing application use and also adoption. Customers want to be able to have new features that add value and make their lives easier. So I always say that if you build an app and consider it one and done, you're not looking at it the right way, because it has to be an evolving thing. Very similar to your website or any My Account portals or anything that the utility supports. It has to reflect kind of all of the new developments that are available for those customers. So in terms of how often you should update, that's always a question of great debate, and we could probably talk an hour about that. But to me, it's release when you have something of value to the customer. And that will, better improve their lives. And generally, as Susan said, that's based on the sprint cadence of the organization. In terms of working with, multiple vendors or multiple project teams, of course, there's always, a complexity there. You need to make sure that you're doing release coordination and planning. Oftentimes we'll recommend meetings such as Scrum of Scrums or program increment planning, all of which are Agile terminology and ceremonies. These meetings bring together all of your teams on an ongoing basis, generally quarterly, to ensure that there's coordination across releases. So if another vendor is working on an enhancement or a change, we need to make sure that we're aware of that so it doesn't cause any breakages in the mobile app. So this really requires a high level of coordination across your project teams to be successful, but it's certainly not an insurmountable challenge. And, we've gotten into a good cadence of meeting with those teams to make sure we're in sync.
All right, very good.
And
I've got one more question
Scott,
for our roundtable. Oh, sure. Go ahead. Jump right in.
Yeah, can I just jump in there? Because I think it brings up, kind of brings this conversation full circle in a lot of ways, where we started the conversation about finding the right partners. And I think that's a key to how this works and why this works so well, is you have partners at the table that are putting your customers and your business goals at its core. And when those people are all aligned on those goals, it breaks down a lot of the complexity and a lot of the challenges that it presents to have multiple vendors working at the table, multiple silos within the organization. It's about alignment, and it's about having vendors that are there to support you and your goals and your customer expectations.
No, absolutely. Thank you. I've got one more for this roundtable session, and then we're going to take some audience questions. And I want to invite the audience members again. I've got some, but please send me some more. I think we're going to have time for a couple more if you'd send those in. This question is for everybody, and Kevin, I'll go ahead and start with you. So, fundamental to this is being able to make the case to the leadership team when you go in and try to pitch this approach, that this is the right approach. So Kevin first, and then I'll go to Susan and Laura. So what's your advice for those who want to go in and discuss this idea, this new model that we're talking about, this better model we're talking about, to leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the opportunity, dare I say privilege, of trying to present these business cases to internal leadership and organizations throughout my history. And the key, I think, to this is really understanding the focus of the organization and understanding the challenge of the customer. And I think if you start with the customer at its core and you present feedback and data that's been provided by the customers, that is step one in being able to make a successful business case. I think step two is a thorough evaluation and a thorough review of both risk and benefits. It's easy to take the risk and benefits that we started with here that are traditionally risk and benefits associated with these two different models of development and solutions. But you have an opportunity now today to look at those risk and benefits differently and think through those risk and benefits differently. And ultimately, an executive is concerned about being successful. What being successful means is increasing customer satisfaction, reducing costs, and being able to present solutions to the regulator that meet their needs and expectations. So if you can find solutions that align those three pieces, you're ultimately going in on the right foot with the best opportunity possible to make that business case to the executives.
Very good, thank you. And Susan, same question from your side of the house as you go in and make the pitch. What advice can you give to our utility members who are listening in on how you do that successfully?
Okay, so when we were making the business case, we had pretty much a hybrid mobile app, and we really hadn't maintained it in a while. And we were talking about wanting to improve our net promoter scores, as well as making sure we were at the right channels and meeting the customers where they expected to be. And some of the Chartwell statistics helped us back up that we were saying mobile first, and we had some of y'all's statistics to help prove that's where we really needed to be. And if we were going to be customer centric as a premier utility, that we needed to bring, our mobile app as a native mobile app, meeting those customer needs. Other things that I wanted to share is that we were able to use vendor references from other utilities. There was proof that they, these DataCapable and Mindgrub had successfully delivered quality deliverables at reasonable costs. And that really helped in our business case, especially for mobile, as we were sole source in Mindgrub. But this has been so embraced now by our leadership that we have ongoing product funding in place for continuously delivering new features in multiple channels, and it's changed the way that we fund after the initial releases.
Very good, thank you. And Laura, I'll give you the last word on that question, and then we're going to move to some of our audience questions. But Laura, go ahead.
Sure. It's always tough being the last word because Susan and Kevin covered such great points. I guess kind of at a high level, what I always recommend is coming to the table to your leadership with a strong understanding of the pros and cons associated with all approaches, rather than defaulting to one or the other. By nature, leaders are usually skeptics, and you want them to be. You want them to challenge kind of your assumptions and what you're coming with. And so I always recommend creating at the very start, based on that very important customer understanding that we've spoken to, a matrix of all of your initial requirements. Of course, they're not going to be fully defined or fleshed out, but at least you understand a core idea of what you're looking to build. But you must also take into account your future state requirements. I found that oftentimes there's a focus on just what are we going to build for that first release, and not necessarily what we want to be building in phases 2, 3, 4. And that's a really important piece of that puzzle. So once you define those requirements, perform a gap analysis and figure out, as Susan mentioned earlier, if that 20% that isn't there is a large enough 20% to justify the more hybrid custom approach that we've been recommending. I'd also recommend performing an assessment of the total cost of ownership, taking into account the cost of customization of any off-the-shelf platform options, as well as ongoing support and ongoing licensing fees, and then taking into account the cost of custom development, as well as ongoing maintenance that is naturally required of that solution as well. Oftentimes, there's some surprises there. Sometimes the fully custom solution can be more cost-effective than the off-the-shelf, or it can be absolutely the reverse. And what I want to say, even though I am speaking on behalf of a custom software development company, is that sometimes off-the-shelf is what makes most sense. It really comes down to doing that strategic and full evaluation of all of your requirements, customer needs, business assessments, and so forth. And when you present that fully vetted plan that we looked at all of these options and we still came to this conclusion, it's shown that you've done your due diligence in vetting everything that's available.
Excellent, thank you. Great last word, appreciate that, and well said. Let's go ahead and move next to our some questions from the audience. So this first question comes in from Lori, and I believe it's probably aimed at Susan, but Laura and Kevin, if you'd like to add some things at the end, that's fine. So the question is, how do you market the new app to your customers? Marketing is very important, and our own research at Chartwell has shown that you can get a significant bump in satisfaction from customers, even if they don't use it, but if they're aware that you're offering it, they still will give you credit for that. So Susan, what can you speak to as far as Entergy's efforts to market this? And then Kevin and Laura, if you have some general observations on what you've seen in the industry and marketing, that I'd appreciate those.
Yes. So we made sure that we had our marketing plan in place well before we were deploying, and we have digital marketing campaigns that go on monthly, and we made sure to, use one of those time frames to do our mobile app marketing, to share with the customers, look at this new mobile app. This is when it's available in the stores. We told them about it about 2 weeks before it was coming out, and then we followed up a week later to make sure they knew about it. We also, in our social channels, depending on the season, there's usually some screen prints and description of what you can do in the mobile app, especially as we start storm season. We show our map. Sometimes we have, enrollment in programs that you can do from the mobile app. And so we go across the channels for that. And then also in our web, we have places from our websites that you can know, would you like to download the mobile app, and show, we kind of change what we're showing as features as they improve.
Very good. Thank you. And Kevin, anything you want to add from, as you look at what not only in this industry other companies are doing, but also other industries, any advice you can give related to marketing that you've seen be successful?
Yeah, I think the key is having a good lead up to it, understanding, particularly from a utility perspective, that your customers aren't always going to engage with you and engage with your marketing. And so you have to have that continuous stream. When the customer touch points that they care most about and they're most engaged with you is when it's billing and then when they have an outage. So you need to focus on driving your adoption around both of those 2 points where the customer is already engaged. And in order to do that successfully, you really have to have a good experience when they have that engagement. So how do I take what is in some ways a painful situation and make the best of it? And I would applaud Entergy from their perspective in the level of granularity and information they provide to their customers. They've taken it a step further than everybody else, and that's resulted, I think, in a much higher engagement and a better experience for the customers. So focusing on those 2 points within the industry, I think, are ways that you'll drive the adoption there. And then just having that continuous stream and making sure that it's available to your customers when your customers come to you, because pushing it to utility customers, it will get you so far, but customers need to be reminded of that they have options over and over again in order for them to engage on those.
Very good. Thank you. And Laura, anything that you'd like to add on that question?
I want to reiterate the importance of continuous marketing efforts. There is a tendency to kind of create a big splash when something is shiny and new, and then have it kind of fade into the background. And in order to get sustained engagement with your mobile application, it's really important to continue those marketing efforts. And Entergy has done a wonderful job in doing so. What we find with apps like this is you will have sustained downloads. It isn't a matter of, you have that initial chance to capture the user and then it fades. What we found through analytics is that downloads are pretty consistent, and they spike during major engagement points, most notably storms. So storms are a huge driver of application downloads, and that's an opportunity to show the customer the value of not just the outage-related features, but the other features available in the mobile application. So what we've seen and recommend is making sure that your messaging is time-based. So I've seen some utilities, for example, do heavy paid advertisement right before a storm event to remind customers that they have this really valuable tool available to them during the outage event. That's seen a lot of high returns. And we also recommend that you target your marketing based on your personas. We talk a lot in the industry about customer personas and making sure that you're sending the right message to the right types of customers. And I think that is sometimes forgotten with mobile apps. They're not a one-size-fits-all, and I know we've mentioned this phrase a lot, but you can target your message based on different types of customers to really find the reason why they would want to download the mobile app, because there's different triggers for different types of customer personas as to why they download and why they continue using it.
All right, very good. Thank you. Our next question comes in from Patty, and she asks, do you run into any issues working with Waterfall development shops. And Susan, I think that one's for you as well. So if you want to start us off on that.
Yes, I'll be happy to. So there are some projects that are done as Waterfall that have impact because they need to be in all of our channels. And we have Salesforce as our My Entergy website, and then, of course, the mobile app. And so one lesson I learned with the smaller Waterfall project that was not a whole lot of changes on the mobile app is that those got delayed a couple of times, and we had to kind of take our code in and out. So now our latest Waterfall project is offering prepay to customers, and it will start next year for a certain set of customers. And so we need those changes, but we've delayed doing the changes in the mobile app till we get really close to the time of deployment so that it aligns with, 1 or 2 sprints that it takes to do the work, and that's when it will deploy. And so that was a little bit of a learning curve, and there is some education to share with the leadership of those projects, but we've been able to successfully show that our DevOps, our Agile DevOps works, and how we can align to the timeframes with the Waterfall projects.
Very good. And let me go to Laura and then Kevin to see if you have anything to add from your perspectives as you work with utilities that can make that process easy or address some of the concerns that might come up as you work in this area. So Laura, anything you'd like to add?
I could speak to, for example, that Mindgrub does have some projects that we run Waterfall. Sometimes it does make sense to run a project in that way. We always do a careful evaluation of both what is needed from the build as well as the internal kind of structure of the organization that we're working with. There are some instances where Agile might not be a fit. There may be some instances where some form of hybrid is needed, so adjustment to the traditional Agile principles and a blended approach is needed. And we've done all three. So to me, it's just making sure that the expectations are really clear and that you're getting the maximum value out of the methodology that you select. Because there's always, there's this hesitation, I think, for organizations that are more used to Waterfall. There's a fear of the unknown, I would say, especially when it comes to the idea that requirements can change. That's really scary, for example, for your traditional supply organization. Well, how do you make a contract if the requirements can change? And so there's an education piece that I think is really important as well in making sure that you dispel some of the myths about what Agile really is. And also, the myth that it is the holy grail and that it's the only solution for modern software development, because in some cases it's not.
Fair enough. Kevin, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, much like what Laura said and what Mindgrub does, we line up on what makes the most sense for our partners and the businesses they're working with. That being said, we've come into businesses that are in that transition. We've come into businesses where they don't have any Agile development or principles in place. And that's one of the things I think that we bring to the table is a good partnership that's focused on helping the organization move along in these projects. And that's not to say that you can't have a Waterfall project in the organization and a vendor organization that's Agile focused. And they are not diametrically opposed to the point where those two can't work in conjunction with each other. We've managed Waterfall projects that are Waterfall on the client side while also managing our sprint and development work internally with an Agile basis. So bringing a competent project manager to the table is a big key to that, right? And making sure that they can line up those pieces both for the vendor organization as well as for the partner organization that we're working with.
All right, very good. We've got time for one more question, but before I read that, I want to just remind everybody we're going to be launching a survey to get some satisfaction, hopefully high satisfaction scores from you guys, but we're very much a member-driven organization. We always like to get the feedback on not only this topic, very important topic today, but also what topics you might like to see us bring to the table as we continue with our EMACS webinar series, but then also with our ongoing webinars that we do with Chartwell, covering a whole range of topics. So please take a couple of minutes and fill that out while we cover our last question. And Susan, I'm going to go to you with this one. And then Kevin or Laura, we've got just a couple of minutes. If there's anything you'd like to add, go right ahead. But Susan, questions come in. How do I find flexible software providers or companies who are willing to collaborate at this level? So for somebody who's coming into this kind of very interested but doesn't quite know how to connect, what advice do you have for them?
So I'll say that the way that we located our partners, in some cases, it was from things that y'all have presented as other utilities, and specifically for Mindgrub. When I first got in this job 3 years ago, I went to my first EMACS in Tampa. And once Pico and ComEd had both presented that they had a new mobile app and they had released it in 6 months, done agilely, I followed up with the presenters to make sure Agile that I thought was the same thing they were talking about. And then, I found Mindgrub to talk to them and see if that would be a good fit for us. And I know similarly, I think we actually did an RFP for our map, but I know that the references from other utilities helped with DataCapable. But I do recommend, I know y'all ask in some other presentations, how many use this vendor for this and this vendor for that, but that's really helpful. And we did have other bids from some vendors on an RFP for our mobile app several years before that we were able to compare. Had they done utilities, which none of them had, and that really helped when we were making our final selections.
Very good. And Laura or Kevin, anything you'd like to add before we get ready to close out for the day?
Just one point on that. I would say know that there are options out there, and just because there is an incumbent or because there are what folks would consider the traditional software providers to the industry, those aren't your only choice. So cast your net wide, make sure you're doing your due diligence when you're looking at solutions. My favorite thing about this industry is how willing and open companies are with sharing information. So make sure you're reaching out to other companies that are in similar situations to you, and keep that information sharing going, because that's going to be your best path.
Excellent. And Laura, I am going to give you the last word again, if you'd like it. Anything you'd like to add?
It's always the hardest. I was going to bring up, and Kevin covered it quite nicely, the idea of just making sure you spread the net wide and consider small, medium, and large size organizations. Both DataCapable and Mindgrub, while we feel quite large, in comparison to some large consultancies with thousands of employees, we offer a very different experience. And I think you have to kind of look at all of those different options and weigh the pros and cons. And the best way to do that, as Susan mentioned, is talk to the other utilities and see yourself, you see a great product, a great app or a great website, figure out who helped them get there. That a wonderful fact of the industry is there isn't much secret keeping when it comes to vendors. Usually people are happy to share if they've worked with a vendor successfully. So really just asking around, I think, is a great method. And of course, attending events put on by organizations like Chartwell is a great way to meet up with those organizations that may offer a different approach than the ones that just kind of immediately come to mind just because of name recognition.
Excellent. And what a great segue. It wasn't planned, but thank you so much. Let me go ahead. I want to thank our presenters and thank our audience for the questions that came in. And just, again, take the survey that we've got up and running. We appreciate that feedback. But I also, as I mentioned, this is part of our new our EMACS webinar series where we explore some of the issues. And I can tell you we're going to be discussing this in great detail as we move to, again, we'll be virtual this year with EMACS in just a couple of weeks. We're incredibly excited here at Chartwell. We've been working on this thing for many months, and we've got some great speakers and great companies who will be sharing their information. So if you haven't registered already, you have the perfect opportunity there through the link on our website. The dates are the 26th through the 28th, and really take advantage of that, because I think our presenters today summarized it best. It's really where you can make connections with some of the companies and providers that have the solutions you're looking for, whether it's in this field or others, and really attack those problems and learn from some of the leading companies in the industry. So also want to remind you that our next webinar in this series is going to be on November 4th, I believe, if we can move to that next slide. And again, part of the EMACS webinar series was in response to a lot of the feedback we were getting from customers. So let me go ahead and hit that one for us. All right, there we go. So November 4th, optimizing digital customer engagement, meter to cash operations in a post-pandemic. It's a mouthful, but you can see from the title, we're going to be covering a lot of very top of mind and timely issues on this one. So don't hesitate. You can go ahead and register for that webinar as well on our website. So this does conclude today's installment of the EMACS webinar series featuring Entergy, Mindgrub Technologies, and DataCapable. Brought to you by Chartwell, dedicated to driving excellence in the utility industry and connecting the industry to solutions. For more information on how Chartwell can connect you with the information your business needs to succeed, please visit our website at chartwellinc.com. Again, thanks to all of our presenters today, and thank you, audience members, for your participation and your questions. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, at a future Chartwell event, and at virtual EMACS. So take care, be safe out there, and to end the webinar, you just need to close your browser. We'll see you next time. Thank you.